Dragonites, how's everybody's week? Welcome to week 2 of Under the Sea. Yes, it's later in the week than I originally wanted it to be, but you know what? We're here and it's all good. So we are going to be discussing this week, since it's been such a terribly long week for, virtually all of us. I thought what we would do is let's talk about some fantasy sea creatures, shall we? We need to get out of reality for a few minutes. So we will discuss some creatures of myth, fantasy, and pop culture. So that ought to cover pretty much all of it. Let me know in the comment section how many you knew of. And if there was one that was new to you that you found particularly interesting, okay? Next week, we're going to talk about the Marianas Trench, and I think you're going to find that interesting. Now, that is a legitimate place. That's a for real enigma, so we're going to talk about that one. So, yes, I did reach the halfway point on my canvas, so woo! What do you know? I might have a prayer of finishing it by the end of the event. I don't know. I'm not counting my chickens before they're hatched. I'm just kind of hopeful that might actually end up being a thing. But in any case, I'm enjoying it and I'm having a good time with this canvas. So I'm excited about that. All right, everybody. Are you ready to begin talking about these creatures of legend and pop culture and, you know, myth? Okay, so if you're ready, I am almost ready, and then we will spend some time discussing the denizens of the deep. Now, I will tell you that I am getting we're going to talk about 30 of them, and I'm getting this from theportallist.com. So if any of you want to check out what I'm saying is what they're telling me, then feel free. That is where the information for today's Whip and Chat is coming from. I also want to do just a brief bit of housekeeping. Please send me your progress pics by end of day on Monday, please. I don't want to have to chase anybody down. Please get it over to me. Need your progress pic by Monday. So next week's Whip and Chat, after we get all our progress pics in and I get the progress whip parade all ready for you. And our next one next week, when we have our Whip and Chat, we're going to do a drawing for the first 2 prizes of our event. So that is always exciting. I am looking forward to that. So remember, canvas pics for your progress is due Monday. We will have the next installment whip parade sometime between Wednesday and Friday this coming week. I hope. This is actually this week coming up is the busiest week of the month for me. But I'm going to do my level best not to let you guys down, Dragonites. So please don't make me have to track you down to get your progress pic, because it's going to be a hard week and I just don't want to have to do it. And I don't want to have to leave you out because I didn't have time to track you down. So please get it to me post haste. Thank you. That's your public service announcement for today. All right. Is everybody ready? Everybody's got what they're working on, sitting here ready to go. Having an issue with my plastic here. Okay. I always find that so annoying. It's like you get the rest of it, you get everything to go, you get all your supplies, and then you and your plastic don't get along. And that is what I am experiencing today. So, I don't know, Dragonites. You know, it's just the level of luck I seem to have with things. Don't ask me why. I don't know. But, anyhow, I don't think there's any permanent damage done to us here. what's the worst that could happen? I might get rolling along and then get to a point where nothing sticks because there's more plastic, and then I will have to peel it off. I think I can survive that. All right, my friends. Those of you who have gotten your adorable, oops, upside down, your adorable, hang on, pen and or tray and or cover minder, I am really happy that you have them. Aren't they adorable? I'm telling you, so cute. Miss Minns did such an awesome job getting these ready for us. I'm telling you, it's been so awesome. I will also have a video coming up. I did get another thing out of Minns' store at True Vampire Crafts here on YouTube and True Vampire Arts in Etsy. Oh, I got a cool thing and I can't wait to show it to you. It's really awesome. And remember, if you already ordered from her before, you know, cover minder or whatever it is you may have ordered, she usually sends you a code with your order confirmation so you can save 10% next time you order. Don't lose that code. If you've lost it already, call her and get it, or email her and get it, or text her and get it, because you're going to want to use that. And when I show you what's in the next video, it's so exciting. Okay. Whew. Breathing in, breathing out. All right, Dragonites. I know this week has really been just impossibly long and sad and frustrating and you name it. It's not been good. So we are getting out of there. We are going to the fantasy world. So come along with me, Dragonites. Let us learn about some denizens of the deep. I think you'll notice, if you're my age or a little older, I think you're going to recognize the last one we talk about. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get started. I'm sorry in advance for barking that might happen. My house is full of people. So just know that going in. All right. Let us begin. Okay. Humans have always been fascinated by the ocean. Even today, we're not entirely certain what lies beneath the waters that cover more than 70% of the Earth's surface. It's no wonder, then, that storytellers throughout history, from the most ancient mythologies to modern monster movies, have populated those dark waters with all sorts of giant ocean monsters, ready to wreak havoc on the surface world at a moment's provocation. All right, so first, we are going to talk about, some of these mythic sea monsters are so large they can lay waste to entire cities with ease, while others are no bigger than the creatures that actually inhabit the oceans of the world, but all of them have captured human imagination throughout the years. Below are just a few of our favorite sea monsters, from the mists of prehistory to the silver screen of the last few decades. What are some of your favorites? So yes, please let me know who your favorite sea creature is in the comments below. The nice thing about the sea is there are so many to choose from. I mean, there really are, you guys. There's so many. First, we're going to start with Cthulhu. And I'm going to give you the spelling on these creatures because I'm telling you right now, I have no prayer of being able to pronounce all of them, but I'll do my best. Cthulhu, C-T-H-U-L-H-U, Cthulhu. It wouldn't be a proper sea monster list without touching on at least a few of the squamous entities that dwell beneath the waves in the stories of H.P. Lovecraft. Are you guys Lovecraftian fans or not so much? Let me know. Cthulhu is probably the old gent's most famous creation, described by Lovecraft himself as resembling an octopus, a dragon, and a human caricature. According to Lovecraft's work, Cthulhu waits dreaming in his house in the sunken city of R'lyeh, But when he wakes up, there'll be trouble. So, that is the first one we're going to get to. All right. You guys read Lovecraft? Do you like Cthulhu? Have you even heard about it? Like, what is your status on some of this stuff? Okay. Next, we're going to talk about the Hydra. Some of you may have remembered this because we talked about this when we did Designer Dragons, when I did Mythological Dragons. The Hydra came up then as well. But anyway, okay. The Lernaean Hydra is an infamous monster from Greek mythology, slain by Hercules despite its ability to regrow 2 heads for each of its many heads that was chopped off. However, it wasn't a sea monster. Instead, it lived in Lake Lerna, from which it took its name. In the centuries since, the term Hydra has become a catch-all for a number of different draconic monsters, including the titular sea serpent in the 1984 Spanish monster movie, The Sea Serpent, also known as Hydra, Monster from the Deep, directed by Armando de Osorio of Tombs of the Blind Dead fame. The Sea Serpent was one of many movies released to cash in on the success of Steven Spielberg's Jaws. Can you guys believe that Jaws is celebrating a huge anniversary? 50 years, my God. However, where that movie just had a big shark, this movie brought in an actual sea serpent, reawakened by a nuclear detonation in the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, so don't miss out on the Hydra. You never know. You might want to jot down some of these movies if you haven't seen them, because you might get a chance to check them out. So if you like to see sea serpent type movies, hey, write them down. I did. I wrote down a few that I didn't even know about, so I'll be looking for those later on. Okay. Now then, we will move on to the next one. I have a little issue. Okay, here we go. Okay. The next one is Dagon. So, oops. What the heck? Oh, it's upside down. Hello, upside down drill. Okay, that looks better. While Cthulhu may be Lovecraft's best known sea monster, he is by no means the only one. An actual deity from ancient times, Dagon is not only mentioned in some of Lovecraft's most famous stories. The esoteric order of Dagon plays a major role in The Shadow over Innsmouth, but also has a story of his own, named after him and lent his name to Stuart Gordon's 2001 Lovecraftian film. Despite that movie sharing more in common with The Shadow over Innsmouth than it does with Lovecraft's story Dagon. All right. Now then, the new Nessie. In 1977, a Japanese fishing trawler off the coast of New Zealand hauled in something unexpected. Something that several scientists claimed was, quote, not a fish, whale, or any other mammal. In fact, the badly decomposed corpse looked quite a bit like the remains of an extinct dinosaur, such as the plesiosaur. This was one of the most high-profile of numerous instances in which unidentified remains were either caught in fishing nets or washed ashore. Sometimes they're called globsters. Oh dear, that doesn't sound good. These unidentified carcasses date back hundreds of years, and in 1896, the quote-unquote St. Augustine monster washed up in Florida. An analysis conducted almost a century later determined that it was probably a mass of tissue from the corpse of a sperm whale. Similarly, the quote-unquote new Nessie, discovered by the crew of the Zuyo Maru in 1977, was most likely the decomposed remains of a basking shark. This hasn't stopped plenty of people from clinging to the idea that it might have been a dinosaur. A dinosaur, though, an idea referenced in several Godzilla movies and an unused opening to the Jurassic movies and an Jurassic Park sequel, The Lost World. So there we go. Next is Ebirah. It's Ebirah. Ebirah. Beginning in 1954, Toho created a sort of cottage industry, releasing films starring their homegrown giant radioactive monster, Godzilla. Over the years, Godzilla went up against many threats, several of which came out of the ocean. Heck, Godzilla himself is technically a sea monster. But for a sea monster list, why not go with the creature that lent its name to the 1966 film Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster? In the movie, Ebirah is a giant crustacean controlled by an evil organization known as Bamboo. Ebirah later reappears thanks to the magic of stock footage in All Monsters Attack, and then later in Godzilla Final Wars. Ebirah is superficially similar to the monster Ganymedes, a mutated stone crab that appears in the 1970 film Yog, Monster from Space, also known as Space Amoeba. Well, I guess no list of sea monsters would be complete without, a couple of crustaceans. Okay. Next is Giganto. Now here's where some of us old-timers might have this in their memory. In the 50s and 60s, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby populated the pages of comic books with a lot more than just some of their greatest superheroes. They also filled them with lots of big, lumpy monsters, many of whom came out of the sea. Few of these seafaring brutes, however, are as memorable as Giganto, actually the name of a whole race of giant whales with arms and legs who helped the Atlanteans attack the surface world, beginning in Fantastic Four #4, published in 1962. Yeah, any of you guys have any of those comic books where these big creatures are helping out the Atlanteans fight the surface people, which apparently must be us? Yeah, let me know if you're a comic book person and you've seen this before. Okay. All right. Kraken. Dun, 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 dun. Sea monster names can be confusing, and the Kraken is a prime example. The word comes to us from Norwegian, where it means an unhealthy or twisted animal, but it entered the popular lexicon when it was borrowed for one of the main antagonist monsters in Ray Harryhausen's Clash of the Titans. I love that movie. I like the remake and I like the original. While Harryhausen's Kraken was a humanoid sea monster with tentacle-like arms and a fishy tail, the mythological Kraken more closely resembles a giant squid. The second Pirates of the Caribbean movie featured a more mythologically accurate depiction of the Kraken, while the 2010 remake of Clash of the Titans boasted a critter that was something of a mixture of the two, also incorporating some crab-like elements. Sounds like they're taking a little creative license with our friend the Kraken. Okay. The version of the Kraken that shows up in Clash of the Titans may have been inspired by the mythological Ketos, taken from the Greek word ketos, meaning a large fish or sea monster. When Queen Cassiopeia angered Poseidon by claiming that she and her daughter Andromeda were more beautiful than the Nereides, sea nymphs who accompanied Poseidon, he punished them by sending the sea monster Ketos to attack Ethiopia. The king and queen consulted an oracle and were told to sacrifice Andromeda to the monster in order to spare their kingdom. They chained her up to a rock, but she was saved when Perseus slew Ketos. In some versions of the story, he did this using Medusa's head. Certainly sounds a lot like the Kraken of Clash of the Titans. Ketos later lent its name to a constellation and also showed up to menace Sinbad's crew in the animated film Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas. Anybody Sinbad fans? I like a couple of them. I won't say that, that's my go-to person, but, there's a couple that I particularly liked. So, there you go. Okay, now we're moving along to the Red Bluster. Okay, as you might imagine from the title, the 2022 Netflix animated feature the sea beast, is pretty heavily focused on sea monsters. That's one of those I'm going to have to write down because I have not seen that. Okay, 2022, the sea beast. Okay. Essentially an extended riff on some of the same elements as How to Train Your Dragon, except now with boats. The sea beast follows a crew of hunters whose job it is to protect the nation of 3 bridges from deadly sea beasts. While there are a number of sea monsters at play, the main one is a huge crimson sea serpent called the Red Bluster, later simply renamed Red by the film's protagonist, who gradually learns that there is more to the sea beasts and the hunt against them than meets the eye. Da-da-da-da. Sounds like there's something afoul. From the director of Big Hero 6, the sea beasts had a large team of animators and creature designers working to bring its sea monsters to life, including concept and comic book artist Guy Davis, who worked on the design of Red, among others. So there you go. Okay, I think this one is called Otoa. It's Otttoia. So I'm going to go with Otoa. I think that's as close as I can get. Okay. There are loads of giant and not so giant sea monsters populating the movies, from the giant octopus of It Came From Beneath the Sea to more recent creatures like those in, say, Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus. But one of my favorites is the thing that attacks the Argonautica in Steve Sommers' 1998 Aliens-like Deep Rising. Where one of the characters from the movie hypothesizes that the creature is an evolution of a type of Cambrian worm known as an Otoa. The end result is something more closely resembling the mythical kraken mentioned above. All right. Okay, now we're going to discuss Taniwha, Taniwha. In Maori mythology, Taniwha can live in all kinds of water, including deep river pools, caves, and the ocean. In fact, linguists have linked the word Taniwha to a Proto-Oceanic word meaning shark. The Taniwha of Maori legend can take many forms, but there are always large creatures linked to water. Taniwha that appear in the ocean are often described as looking similar to whales or sharks, while those dwelling farther inland are more likely to be giant lizards. They can also be either benevolent or malicious, with some acting as protectors and guardians, while others are dangerous and destructive. Okay. One story from A.W. Reed's Reed Book of Maori Mythology describes a Taniwha named Kaiwar, Kaiwhare, who was tamed by a hero named Tamura, Tamure, hailed for his ability to defeat Taniwha in battle. Kaiwar was menacing a particular group of people who called Tamura for help. Tamura wrestled Kaiwar until he had tamed it, and after that it still lived in the nearby waters, but only preyed on crayfish and octopus. So there you go. Taught him a thing or two, apparently. Okay, now this piece, these two creatures, I have no prayer of getting it correct. So it's Scylla. I'm going to call it Scylla, and Charbydis. I'm going to call it Charidus because that's as close as I can get. So those are the two we're talking about now. Something of a matched set. Scylla and Charidus also come to us from Greek mythology, specifically the Odyssey. Two monsters dwelling on either side of the Strait of Messina. Scylla represented the dangers of the rocky shore and was depicted in a variety of ways, including as a woman with a dragon-like tail and dog heads sprouting from her body, while Charidus represented a deadly whirlpool. The two monsters have given us an idiom that dates to this very day, with between Scylla and Charidus meaning about the same thing as between a rock and a hard place. So there you go. Okay. Now we're going to talk about sirens. And I showed you in my last video that Mike Weeks is doing a siren for this event. So yeah, we're looking forward to seeing your progress on that, Mike, just so you know. Okay, sirens. Famed for luring unwary sailors to smash their ships upon the rocks. The sirens are known for their lovely and enchanting songs, with which their names have become virtually synonymous. In Greek mythology, the sirens plagued both Jason and the Argonauts and Odysseus on their respective voyages. Most depictions of the sirens show them as part woman, part bird, though some more recent variants have taken a looser approach, as in the 2003 animated adventure Sinbad Legend of the Seven Seas, in which the siren portrayed as a sort of living water taking on humanoid form. So, and then some of them, they're kind of synonymous with mermaids, so I guess it depends on how creative they want to be in the movies, but yeah, those are our sirens. Okay, this creature we're going to talk about now is called Ningen.Ningen. Ningen. Having Japanese, quote unquote, whale research ships been spotting giant whale-sized humanoids in the waters off Antarctica since the 1960s? Yes, if you believe online accounts of the so-called Ningen, a word that just means human in Japanese. Originally appearing online around 2007, accounts of these bizarre cryptids are most likely just a kind of creepypasta, internet folklore made up for fun and circulated as if it were true. All known photos and records of the Ningen have proven to be hoaxes. But what are these mysterious giant humanoids supposed to be like? There are several descriptions of the Ningen out there. Some posit that they are enormous, the size of a whale, with purely white bodies and only rudimentary facial features, including small eyes and a slit-like mouth. Other descriptions identify the Ningen as a smaller creature, bipedal and less aquatic, similar to Fresno nightcrawlers. Okay, the terrible dogfish. Da-da-da-da. Okay. In Disney's 1940 animated feature film version of Pinocchio, Geppetto and Pinocchio are swallowed by a sea monster named Monstro, who is portrayed as a giant sperm whale. In Carlo Collodi's original 1883 book, The Adventures of Pinocchio, however, the role is filled by the terrible dogfish, a giant ocean monster also known as the Attila of fish and fishermen. According to Collodi, the shark-like dogfish is larger than a 5-story building and has 3 rows of teeth in its enormous mouth, which is plenty big enough to swallow ships and, of course, Pinocchio and Geppetto. Okay, giant octopus. Fictional depictions of giant squid and octopus have been common since the early days of sailing and can be found in illustrations and woodblock prints going back to the early 19th century. One of the most famous of these is the giant squid that attacks the Nautilus in Jules Verne's classic novel, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. These giant beasts of the deep naturally made their way onto film screens, including several cinematic adaptations of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, with probably the best known being a 1954 live-action Disney version starring Kirk Douglas, James Mason, and Peter Lorre. One of the most memorable examples of a giant cephalopod on screen, however, comes the following year in 1955's It Came From Beneath the Sea, which features a giant radioactive octopus brought memorably to life by the stop-motion special effects magic of Ray Harryhausen. The film's bravura moments include the giant octopus tearing down San Francisco's famous Golden Gate Bridge. All right. Okay, I'm going to call this Jormungandr. It's Jormungandr. In Norse mythology, Jormungandr is also known as the Midgard serpent because it is so long that it wraps all the way around the world and can hold its own tail in its mouth. The offspring of Loki and a giantess named Angrboda. When the Midgard serpent releases its tail, it will mark the beginning of Ragnarok. During that cataclysmic event, Thor will fight the battle with Jormungandr, during which he will slay the mighty serpent only to then fall dead himself from its venom. Okay. Sea Bishop. According to sea monster myth and myth and legends, the sea bishop or bishop fish was caught and taken to the king of Poland, who showed it to a group of Catholic bishops. When the bishops released the creature, it made the sign of the cross before disappearing back under the waves. Let's see. The bishop fish is a type of fish that looks like a man, specifically like a Catholic bishop, while other variations include legends of the sea monk, a fish that looks like a monk. Later experts came to the conclusion that the sea monk was probably actually an angel shark, a type of shark that is also known as a monkfish. The bishop fish made an appearance in the 4th volume of Conrad Gessner's Historiae Animalium, an inventory of Renaissance zoology, as well as Johann Zahn's Specula Physico-Mathematico Historica Notabilium ac Mirabilium Sciendorum. Phew! And has been associated with the imagery of the half-human, half-fish sages known as Apkali in ancient Mesopotamian mythology. That one was a mouthful, guys. Whew! Okay. Now, Lusca. Lusca. How many monsters have a film festival named after them? More than you might think. But one unlikely one is the Lusca, a cuttlefish or octopus-like sea monster said to lurk in the blue holes of the Bahamas. In a 2016 episode of the popular Animal Planet series River Monsters, host Jeremy Wade visited the Andros Islands, where the Lusca is said to make its home, in order to investigate alleged disappearances of swimmers and divers. Wade eventually decides that a giant Pacific octopus is the most likely culprit, but no octopus has ever been known to grow anywhere near the Lusca's purported size of 75 feet. Real or not, the Lusca has a hold on popular culture. The Lusca Fantastic Film Fest is held every year in Puerto Rico. Some descriptions of the Lusca claim that it is half shark, half octopus, which would describe the antagonist of both the 1984 film Monster Shark, also known as Devilfish, and the 2010 sci-fi original Sharktopus, which eventually got 2 sequels and a remake. Yeah, because of course it did. Okay. Next we have the lion turtle. This mythical sea monster exists in the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender. But unlike other creatures on this list, this gigantic half chimera, half turtle animal is pretty benevolent. In the television series, Aang, the main protagonist, accidentally encounters one of these fearsome creatures when he swims toward a floating got that word covered up, just off the coast in a trance. When he snaps out of it and realizes the island he's sitting on top of is the back of this large creature, he dives into the ocean to communicate with it. The backs of lion turtles are so large that they host their own entire ecosystem on their shell. In the legend of Korra, the successor to Avatar: The Last Airbender, a large number of these creatures existed in the past, serving as both shelter and guardians for humans. In the early days of humanity, settlements were built on the backs of these creatures, since they were the only safe place for humans to thrive. This was the case because the world outside the lion turtle towns and villages was populated by troublesome spirits that had a tendency to attack humans. In addition to this, lion turtles also provided humans with the ability to bend fire, water, earth, or air when they traversed outside the colonies to gather resources. Avatar: The Last Airbender didn't create these island-sized lion turtles whole cloth either. They're inspired by the legends of the Asbidoshalon, which are described in medieval bestiaries as turtles or fish so large that they are mistaken for islands by sailors. Yeah, that had to be a pretty darn big turtle, I think. Okay. Megalodon. I bet some of you have heard about Megalodon. Yeah. Okay. Sharks have been popular perils on ocean-going movies since Steven Spielberg's 1975 smash hit Jaws. And there are now more shark movies out there than you can shake a stick at. While the sharks in those movies are often at the big end of shark development, however, they are still generally just animals and not what you would necessarily call a sea monster. Enter the Meg, a 2018 film adaptation of Steve Alten's 1997 novel about a prehistoric shark known as a megalodon. Let's see. The real megalodon went extinct more than 3 million years ago and has only been identified from partial remains, meaning that we know only a little about it. We're not even sure how big it got, though it was certainly bigger than modern sharks with a length of anywhere from 40 to 80 feet. Naturally, the megalodon in the Meg is at the bigger end of that scale, and after it ruses in the depths of the Mariana Trench, it goes on a rampage at a crowded beach in China's Sanya Bay. The Meg got a sequel in 2023. Okay. Rhedosaurus, which is Rhedosaurus. Okay. Before Godzilla, there was the beast from 20,000 Fathoms. This 1953 monster movie takes its inspiration from The Foghorn, a Ray Bradbury story about a sea monster that falls in love with a lighthouse's foghorn. In the film, the monster, Rhedosaurus, a made-up dinosaur that is awakened from hibernation by atomic testing in the Arctic Circle. Sounds like a Godzilla movie already, right? It really does, guys. The Rhedosaurus heads south, destroying a lighthouse along the way in a scene reminiscent of Bradbury's short story, before finally meeting its end at New York's Coney Island. Brought to life by special effects legend Ray Harryhausen, the Rhedosaurus was far from the last sea monster that Harryhausen would bring to screens. He also contributed creatures to other parts of this list, including the giant octopus in It Came From Beneath the Sea and the Kraken in Clash of the Titans. Okay. There's a couple more I need to write on my list. It Came From Beneath the Sea. Okay. All right. Moving on. This is called the Umibozu. Umibozu. In Japan, these sea monsters were pure nightmare fuel for sailors who believed in the myths surrounding this creature. Umibozu is a giant, shadowy, humanoid-like monster who terrorizes sailors who are unlucky enough to cross paths with it during a voyage. Upon encountering the creature, what was once a beautiful day with calm waters immediately turns into thunderous chaos with harsh waves and never-ending rain. According to Japanese mythology, when an Umibozu, appears, they will either immediately attack a ship and drown its crew, or ask for a barrel from the ship's supply as an offering. If the crew complies with the creature's demand, sometimes the umibozu will spare the ship. But in order to ensure a safe travel away from the sea monster, sailors say that giving the umibozu a bottomless barrel will leave the creature confused, giving the ship and its crew an opportunity to flee before the umibozu realizes it has been tricked. Well, that's taking a chance if you're going to give something make-believe to a creature like that. Holy cow. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, a tropical horror. The British author William Hope Hodgson produced a vast and varied body of work around the turn of the century, but what he is perhaps best known for are his stories of horror on the high seas. Returning again and again to the weed-choked wastes of the Sargasso Sea, Hodgson's sea stories had the ring of truth to them, due in part to the fact that Hodgson himself had served several years as a sailor. The ocean in a William Hope Hodgson story is populated by all sorts of weird monsters, from ghost pirates to giant crabs to sinister fungi to things even more impossible to describe. Yet describe them Hodgson did, and one example is the eponymous quote-unquote thing in his story A Tropical Horror. Quote, rising above the bulwarks, Hodgson writes, seen plainly in the bright moonlight is a vast slobbering mouth a fathom across. From the huge dripping lips hang great tentacles. As I look, the thing comes further over the rail. It is rising, higher and higher. There are no eyes visible, only that fearful slobbering mouth set on the tremendous trunk-like neck, which, even as I watch, is curling inboard with the stealthy sterility of an enormous eel. Well, there's a book for you. So, yeah, maybe you want to check out William Hodgson's book on all his sea creatures. Sounds like he has quite the ability to tell detailed stories. Okay, this one is, now we're going to talk about Capricorn. Where's all the Capricorn people out there? If you're Capricorn, let me know in the description box, or not the description box, but the comment section. Let me know if you're a Capricorn. Okay, so, all right. More often than not, when we hear the word Capricorn, our mind jumps to birth charts and zodiac signs. But this sea monster actually has its roots in Greek mythology. Capricorns have the face and upper body of a goat and the tail of a fish, making it capable of swimming and lying out on the shores. Despite anatomically making zero sense whatsoever, these creatures were capable of speech and were often favored by the gods. The mythology behind Capricorns starts with Prychus, the original Capricorn who fathered the entire race. Prychus was granted immortality, and the ability to turn back time by Kronos, the god of time. When his Capricorn children walked on the shore and stayed out of the sea too long, they ended up becoming regular goats who lost their ability to swim, speak, and think. In an effort to revert this, Prychus used his time-reversing ability to turn the regular goats back into Capricorns. Prychus couldn't keep up with how many times his children repeatedly stayed on the shore, so he gave up trying to remedy the situation and led a life of loneliness. Taking pity on Prychus, Kronos turned the creature into the constellation we all know today, so he can happily see how all of his goat children are doing from the sky. So there you go, Capricorns. Now you know all there is to know. Okay, giant crabs. Giant crustaceans have shown up as monsters in fiction and film only slightly less often than gigantic cephalopods. Perhaps nowhere more memorably than in Guy N. Smith's 12-book series of novels, graphic novels, and short stories about giant crabs beginning in 1976 with titles like Night of the Crabs, Killer Crabs, Crabs, the Human Sacrifice, and so on. Giant crabs menaced sailors in the short stories of William Hope Hodgson and in the 1961 adaptation of Jules Verne's Mysterious Island, where the crab was brought to life with an actual crab exoskeleton and the stop-motion mastery of Ray Harryhausen. More recent killer crab movies include Island Claws, 1980, Queen Crab, 2015, and Crabs! 2021, in which the antagonists are murderously mutated horseshoe crabs, to name a few. A giant jewel-encrusted crab named Tamatoa even shows up in Disney's Moana. Okay. Now, some of you 70s and 80s and 90s people, Gyarados. This intimidating sea monster has appeared many times throughout the Pokemon series. Gyarados thrives in both fresh and salt water and is infamously known for its bad temper and destructive nature. Trainers in the Pokemon universe who are capable of capturing and taming this beast are said to share a powerful bond with Gyarados, since the creature will regress its violent instincts to obey its master. Gyarados' sea serpent design was actually inspired by dragons in Chinese mythology. Unlike European dragons, these creatures are very serpent-like in shape and have distinct whiskers on their faces. Funny enough, Gyarados also evolves from the very useless Magikarp, a fish Pokemon that is incapable of doing anything but splashing around. According to Pokemon lore, it's this very dramatic shift in brain structure during evolution that causes Gyarados to have violent tendencies. Well, I guess we now know why Gyarados has issues, huh? Okay. If you remember Pokemon, let me know who your favorite Pokemon is. I had a plant deck and I liked Beedrill. I thought he was cool. Okay. Bodyanoi. 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 Rooted in Slavic mythology, Bodyanoi are water spirits who take on the form of a naked old man with a frog-like face. Let's see, with a frog-like face. After spending so much time in fresh and salt water, these creatures tend to have moss, algae, and other plant-like growth all over their bodies, giving them a distinct green color. Ew! Does that sound like Creature from the Black Lagoon to you guys? Because that's the first place my head went, was, ooh, Creature from the Black Lagoon. Okay. Bodyanoi are said to be relatively calm and can often be seen floating down a river. Floating down a river or along the shore on a log or driftwood. In popular culture, these creatures have appeared in the Witcher series by Andrzej Sapkowski, where they have formed a society and share the ocean with other races. Let's see. Despite their old appearance and peaceful demeanor, if angered, Bodyanoi can be quite destructive. In Slavic lore, if anyone angered these sea creatures, the Bodyanoi would destroy man-made structures near the body of water it resided in, or drown humans and animals in the area. Worst case scenario, a really mad Bodyanoi would drag its victims down to its underwater home where they would be enslaved for eternity. Well, that doesn't sound fun. Okay. All right. Now we're going to talk about one you guys will probably recognize if you were doing the Designer Dragon event. Leviathan. We talked about this Leviathan, if you guys recall, during the event. Hebrew in origin, this terrifying sea monster is often drawn and described as being a water reptilian of some sort. Immensely large in size, the Leviathan appears in the Old Testament as a sea serpent with multiple heads. In this scene, God kills the creature and offers its carcass as food for the Hebrews. Here's the scene if you guys want to see what we're talking about here. Okay. As a creature rooted in a religion that comes from ancient Mesopotamia, this creature has been interpreted in a variety of ways in different religions and cultures. As Judaism continued to develop, the Leviathan upgraded from sea serpent to the water dragon that many associate with the creature. With the creature today. In Christianity, the Leviathan is presented as a ravenous demon that has an insatiable appetite for all of God's creations. In some Christian interpretations, the Leviathan might also just be a giant crocodile. Because of this creature's massive size and underwater dwelling, the name Leviathan is actually used as a general term for describing large sea monsters. More than likely due to its very old origins, the Leviathan is pretty much the root of most sea creature myths. Therefore, the Leviathan easily takes home the title for the oldest and most fearsome of sea creatures. Okay, now we are going to talk about Zeuglodon, Zeuglodon. The Zeuglodon is a primitive form of whale, says Daniel Cohen in his 1982 book, The Encyclopedia of Monsters, that is not only suspected of being several types of modern monster, but its remains were actually passed off as a monster during the 19th century. Both more and less accurately known as Basilosaurus, Zeuglodon actually describes a genus of large predatory mammals similar to whales that lived more than 30 million years ago. Though they were ancestors of the modern whale, Cohen writes, they didn't look much like them. Hence the early name Basilosaurus, which means roughly king lizard, was coined when paleontologists did not yet realize that these were seagoing mammals rather than reptiles. Though the Zeuglodon, which means roughly yoke tooth, is probably a probably more apt appellation. The International Code of Zoology Nomenclature suggests that the original, if less accurate, name is the proper one to use. In the middle of the 19th century, a showman and self-styled paleontologist named Albert Koch, K-O-C-H, discovered the partial skeletons of 2 or more distinct Zeuglodon species in Alabama, and decided to chain them together to make one enormous beast, which was sometimes called his hydrarchos, meaning measuring more than 114 feet in length and looking for all the world like a classic sea serpent. The hydrarchos was exhibited for years until it was destroyed in the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. Though believed to be extinct for a long, long time, some cryptozoologists believe that surviving Zeuglodons may be the source of many sea serpent stories, and the Zeuglodon has found its way into popular culture, including making an appearance as a kaiju-like yokai in Shigeru Mizuki's classic manga, GGG no Kitaro. All right, and last but not least, my personal favorite, Sigmund the Sea Monster. Let me know if you remember Sigmund the Sea Monster. Oh man, used to love to watch him on Saturday mornings. Okay. Not all sea monsters are scary, of course. In fact, the star of the Sid and Marty Krofft children's show, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, was a sea monster named Sigmund who got in trouble with his sea monster family precisely because he couldn't or wouldn't scare humans. Along with Sigmund himself, the show featured the rest of his aquatic clan, including his 2 brothers named Slurp and Burp, and their parents, Big Daddy Ooze and Sweet Mama Ooze. And that is all 30 of our sea creatures, you guys. So let me know, do you remember Sigmund the Sea Monster? I remember distinctly because he used to be right before Dr. Shrinker, who was followed by Electro Woman and Dinah Girl, which no girls ever missed on Saturday mornings. So yeah, I used to love it because it was the one day that my parents would sleep in and they were like, listen, the Fruity Pebbles is on the table. You know where the milk is. Put the milk back after you pour it. Okay, see you later. And that was Friday night, and then I did not see them until they decided to get up on Saturday morning because they both worked very, very hard. So, and it was just my brother and I, and he was usually, because he was 8 years older than I was, so he was usually out playing with friends by then. So it would just be me and the TV and my cat at the time. So yes, I spent many a Saturday with Sigmund the Sea Monster. Yeah, I did. And if I got up really early, which didn't really happen because I liked to sleep. Even then I liked to sleep. But if I did get up early, I would get to watch Scooby-Doo first before all of the Saturday shows ran together. And, you know, that took us till noon easily because, you know, which I'm sure is what it was designed to do, is keep us off of our parents' case until noon so they could do whatever they needed to do for the weekend. So, yeah, that was... Anyway, that's my favorite. Good old Sigmund. Sigmund the Sea Monster. I liked H.R. Puffnstuff too. I could not get enough of Witchy Poo. I couldn't. Or Freddy the Flute. They were all good. Alright guys, let me know if you remember Sigmund and who was your favorite sea creature. Was there a favorite that you have that you didn't hear about yet? Because that's always interesting too. We have a couple more whipping chats for the event, so you know that's happening. Please don't forget, by tomorrow evening, you should be ready to take your picture to send to me on Monday of your progress. Don't forget, please. And I will keep you posted when I am getting ready to do the next whipping chat next week. And hopefully, if I get everybody's progress pic on time, I will be able to put them together, have a quick whip and chat going on, and we will do our first drawing to see who wins. Yay! So that'll be exciting. I'm excited to give you guys stuff. Okay, so that's what I have for you today. If there's any questions that you have, if you want me to take your progress pic from one that you have posted in the Facebook group instead of emailing me one, that's fine. Just let me know that you've done so. You know, leave me a comment here, or let me know in an email that you posted it in the group, and I will go get it from there. But I need to know that's where you put it, so that's what I will do. All right, everybody, have a wonderful rest of your weekend. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about some mythical creatures. Next week we're going to talk about the Mariana Trench, and which is so fascinating and so much going on around there, and it's just really cool. So, all right, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Hugs to you all. Dragonites, I adore you. You know that. Remember, always be a dragon. Spread your wings. Protect those you love. Have fiery passion. Stay strong, slay your fears, and always fly high, rise up, and soar. All right, Dragonites, remember, you are Dragonites, and you are deserving of respect and courtesy. But it's up to you to make sure that you get it. You decide how people speak to you. Doesn't matter how they want to speak to you. If you're not there and refuse to be in their presence until they learn how to speak to you civilly, then that's how they will have to speak to you if they really want to talk to you. And if they don't, that's no skin off of your nose. You got things to do. Let them go and do their thing. You do your thing, and go to the people who do treat you the right way. You know who they are. All right, everyone. New subbies, thank you so much for subbing in. I really appreciate it. Welcome to the Diamonds and Stuff family. You are officially an honorary Dragonite. Please feel free to look around. I am going to get a playlist going and try to separate out, now that I have over 200 videos. Yay! I am going to try my best to start getting them into designated playlists so that you guys don't have to scroll through all of them to try to get to what you're looking for. So, but feel free to look around if you'd like to. I hope you find what's here to be useful. If any of you would like to see a diamond painting related video about either a technique or a tool or something that you are curious about and you have not been able to find or see, or if you have questions, please let me know in the comment section and I will do my best to get that done for you. All right. And I have kept you for my entire hour. All right, everybody. Big hugs to all of you. Progress Pics by Sunday, or Sunday night, Monday at the latest. And I am going to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.